Hey everyone, this is the third episode of the Useful AI Art podcast by Motive. And for the first time, we are actually doing it face to face. I have with me Srikanth, my co-founder, and I have Bharat, who heads our lab initiative. Some of you would have seen his LinkedIn post about the new product that we are building, Winner. We have a bunch of interesting conversations, pretty much every day about how to build agentic workflows, what agents are, and how enterprise AI landscape is changing. So we thought we'll just do the same conversation again, just this time it's for the benefit of you. There is this ERP, CRM, HCM, those type of solutions which we call as systems of record. They store the organization in context. In the case of CRM, it's like customer records and leads and so on, financial data in the ERP and so on. And then some workflows. These workflows are, looking at having the benefit of the hindsight, those workflows are really not workflows. It's primarily humans doing things on a CRUD interface. But a lot of work is actually done by humans, which is what we now call a service as a software. The human does the service because the software is done, right? The system of record is like a data store with some workflow on top of it, but a lot of heavy lifting done by humans. That's how I understand it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So the system of record is it's not a dumb, like you said, it's not a dumb data store, but the sophistication that you would require for the system of record to be more than what it is not there. The sophistication for that is limited here.
Yeah, one place to maintain the record was the property software.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing is, for example, if you're looking at, say, a CRM system or ERP system, right? So it is not just one system of record. You have enabling multiple functions across an organization to work on a similar uniform set of records, right? And like Ashwin said, right, basically CRUD principles where you're maintaining same record across say different stores with different views, enabling different actors in the organization to work on retrieve records, enter records, take decisions, and so on. And essentially, it does have some rudimentary workflow, but the workflow is essentially just if-then-else statements, nothing which is essentially decision-making as such. It's like saying, okay, if this happens, push it to that data store, and then provide a trigger to some human interface who will then look at the interface and take a decision, do an interaction, and then push back another set of records into the system of records.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there is no intelligence within it. It helps enable functions across an enterprise work on single store of record, but really no intelligence built into the workflows.
Yeah. The engagement system of engagement was essentially forms that you would fill inputs on and download records, or like at the maximum a dashboard that you would play with. Correct? But what's fascinating about the 2022 AI inflection is that the system of engagement has become an exciting playground for companies saying we are doing AI first something, right? See, the other day I was seeing a demo of a ERP which says now they have the AI capability. What it does is it gives an interesting interface, which is essentially like a chat box where you can type in prompts. The prompt is essentially a human version of an SQL query, a human readable version of an SQL query. That's all it is. And it does what it does and returns some records or returns some answers. Or you say, can you create this PO for me? It creates it. It's still the CRUD. It's still like data query and response. Just that the interface is not the form itself. The interface is not like an email or a phone call to the person itself. It's just natural language query. That's not AI. That is AI, but that's not what agentification is. So there is the system of record. Then there is the system of engagement. Both were archaic, and now there is some exciting things happening on the prompt side of things, and chat GPT, chat interfaces, and so on. The system of engagement is evolving. System of records are still the same. Then there's a new thing, which is system of intelligence, which we say agent or swarm of agent actually looking at workflows and conducting or making workflow through those workflows making some decisions and so on. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So before we go into the depth of it, what is an agent?
Agent is not just a dumb executor. It has capabilities to reason and think its way through the problem state. And this need not be one agent. So an agent that has thought through one problem can hand it off to another agent, and so on and so forth. That agent is hyper specialized for that particular need and for that particular, and it has those capabilities which will go into detail a little bit later about what specific capabilities does an agent need to exhibit, what we think are base capabilities behind an agent.
So then is it fair to say if agents can actually access, have memory, access tools, assign tasks and get the job done. So the combination of the system of record plus the human, which is actually operating a system of record to get some things done. So in an ideal world, not an ideal world, in the world that we are entering into, there is a system of record, system of engagement, and system of intelligence. The system of record will get dumber and dumber and become the data store, whereas the system of intelligence and engagement will actually become a true human level co-pilot or autonomous thing, which will get the job done. And the data store can be anything at that point. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely, right? So if you look at with existing ERP or CRM or any other workflow systems, if you see where human interventions are needed, right? It is, there are, maybe I can look at two typical cases, right? There are more, but two typical cases will be one where you have information stored in unstructured or multiple formats where a human agent needs to retrieve that information, compare the data, make some decisions, and validate it and say, yes, this is okay. For example, if you're taking in say some claim forms, for example, right? Looking at your claim submissions versus your policy documents, which is sitting in some store record. Your claim system allows you to retrieve the record and look at it, but it is still only an unstructured data. So a human looks at the data in both, says, yeah, this matches with that, because the human is actually, but there the human is just converting unstructured data to structured in data in his mind, validating it and doing a checkbox saying, yes, both of them match, right? This is a simple validation which can be done by a agent, which is kind of domain agnostic, because you're just retrieving data from two unstructured data stores, applying some business rules to validate it, and then say yes or no. It's a simple reflex or a goal-based agent. Right? But the other one, which is slightly more complex, is where somebody needs to evaluate a claim based on, say, the domain expertise. So if it's healthcare, they need to have some healthcare information. They need to know some legal and insurance information knowledge. They're applying all of those along with, say, data information which is not complete. So they may need to, in some cases, make a judgment call with uncertain information.
Correct.
Right? And make a decision, which is then becomes a human judgment, and that's where the expertise or experience of the human being is required.
An agent needs to have some sort of reasoning, whether that's a small functional LLM or a SLM, for example. It need not be an LLM. It could be a small language model. It could be a vision language model. It could be a bunch of things that is specialized in doing one thing. Right? Then you would have, because an agent needs to execute tasks, it also needs to have where in the sequence of tasks it is. So it needs to maintain what I call status and memory, which means here is where I am, here is what's happening, what have I done before. So that's important. Then you would, once I know where I am, what am I going to do with all that memory and all that action? Then I need to execute the tools. So I need, using these functions and memory, like states and memories, I'm able to call tools, or I'm able to execute functions that does things, brings information, executes tasks, or collects whatever. And these are the specifics to an enterprise or to a workflow that are different from one. The same tool and function can't be called for every workflow. They'll be distinct from everything. So that's where the business logic, that's where the intelligence, the maturity, that's where the maximum benefit from an agentic perspective. The more robust your process is, quicker it understands what it is, right? Then what I think is actually one of the more important parts of an aspect is this reflection and self-critical. Agents, typical good agents, need to self-reflect. So they have, when you build capabilities to say, you know what, at every step of the way, am I checking? Am I going back, coming back, going back, checking back? And you learn, and therefore you feed that back into the memory, saying that, hey, these are steps I missed, these are things I did, and I bring them back. And so that self-reflection is another thing.
So thinking of
Yeah.
self-reflection, right? I mean, the way you're talking, I'm thinking of two different scenarios. Maybe you can tell me whether they work. They are self-reflection, right? So one is like, say, in the claims case, or I'm trying to decide whether a particular claim or something is fraud. Then you can look at, say, something can, like you said, valid claims or a fraudulent check claim or whatever it is, right? It could have multiple causes, and as a human being, as an expert who's validating whether some transaction is fraud, they're looking at multiple cases of why fraud can happen and trying to evaluate all of them, or trying to use these or test these cases at multiple. Say there are 5 different ways in which something can be a fraud, then you have to try find all of those 5 tests that need to be done to make sure that this transaction is not a fraudulent transaction. The other way I think self-reasoning can work is, I'm at a particular state right now. There are multiple paths that I can follow to reach my goal.
Correct.
Now, but I don't know which path is the right one.
Correct.
So I need to take one or two which is most probable. But if I know that at a particular stage that path is not going to work, I need to come back to my initial state and then take a different path.
Correct.
And this sort of aligns with what you were saying about self-reflection and bidirectional paths.
Yeah, and those self-reflection right now, right? You can affect it in 2 ways. One is you can have endless decision trees, if else, if else, if else this. Or the simplest is like for many cases, have minimal human involvement in that, right? An agent does the work for you, right? There's a difference between a fully autonomous agent and an agent that does work for you. If the agent is going down many wrong paths, as it were, the best scenario is for humans to say, hey, stop, you know what, go back here and do it. And if you build the agent in a good manner where it retains state, where it retains memory, it knows that, hey, a human is involved and corrected me at this step. So when I encounter this the next time, I will not go down the wrong path. I'm able to steer down the correct path, right? So the same, like these are, if you have a process that enables you, or your system design allows you human intervention or human feedback every now and then, that agentic system will perhaps work best or better than fully autonomous systems right now, in cases where the decision-making trees are very deep. If it's a flat tree or like a tree with less branches, then the agent can pretty much do, you can design a system, agent to think its way through. But if it's many branches or many roots, then having a human there makes sense.
So yeah, then this also says how your system of engagement should change.
Correct.
Because if you need, what you need is a human being who understands the process, who has the domain knowledge,
Correct.
and is able to guide the AI rather than actually just provide dumb input to, like in a system of record where you're just providing data and inputs. But here you're actually directing the system.
Correct.
And using the AI to enhance your capabilities and guide it to the right path rather than you doing the reasoning.
So it's actually
Sorry, in fact, this is why a one size fits all, chat is not an answer.
Yes.
Correct.
So you put a visual path of here are the 3 paths I'm going to take, and here's how I'm going to approach. Then you say no, don't approach like this, do like this.
Exactly.
It has to be an interactive. It can be an ephemeral screen, but it has to be interactive enough between the user who's guiding the AI and us. It's not all of this reading this in text and prompting, prompt away to glory.
Let me go back. I think so. You go back to I want to create a PO. What is the most effective way of creating a PO? Right? Someone who's used the system of record, who's used to the way its UI, its interface works, they will be super familiar with the mechanics of creating a PO. Right? All they require is the data. Right? Have you seen any railway reservation clerk or anyone, even us when we book, we don't go to booking.com and say, I want a hotel room in Chennai on the 14th between this, I want price this. We don't do that. We have been trained because in terms of efficiency, table-based efficiency, saying, hey, I want this hotel, I'm selecting this is my name, boom, boom. A CRUD application is not your thinking your way through a problem. It's a simple act of creation. You don't need a chat GPT for it or a chat style interface for it. Right? But where it can help is this is where the agentic thing sort of comes in, right? The creation is a simple thing, it's a CRUD application. You put a form and do it. But what happens next? Right? That is where like the next evolution, like even there in an ERP, once a PO is created, you have workflows. Yes, PO is created, goes for approval, this happens, that happens. You have branch of workflows even now, automated stuff. Where the agent can make a huge difference is in slowly subsuming some of those actions. So for like $100,000 contract, if you're signing something, you don't have enough information, so it goes higher and higher and higher up. And therefore, it doesn't just become an information gap, it also becomes something strategically from a company point of view, is it useful, not useful, right? So in those cases, a human will still be involved, but you can keep training an agent to close that information gap between people and say, it moves up the value chain to do more and more tasks that someone else was doing until you reach the point where a human actually 100% knows, because the human doesn't, the agent so far will not understand strategic contexts or imperatives.
Yeah, all the variables there.
All the variables are there. So
yeah, in fact, this is an interesting point because you don't need to build an AI ERP or AI HCM or AI CRM. So logging into HubSpot and say update this record is nice, but like, it removes boredom and like I don't want to fill my lead information. It fills it. All that is great, but like competing with HubSpot is like a bigger problem. Let's take a ERP. Competing with the ERP, Oracle ERP, like a Stargy, like a big company, is a bigger problem because like, nobody gets fired for having Oracle. But like if you're replacing Oracle with like something your own ERP and it doesn't work, it's a big problem. So enterprise is not going to buy. So I think from a competitive strategy approach perspective, don't think of replacing the system of record because the system of record is dumb enough. And the query and like, so for example, PO, for anyone where we have done inspections of vendors and they've passed through all the factors that are important for this RFP, automatically go ahead and issue the PO and if the PO is issued, then go ahead and issue the work orders. So the work orders are under like $1,000. So the PO issue is a step, and they have to see all the POs and issue one by one. And after the PO is issued, they have to go to the work order system and create the work order and send it. If the work order and PO does not match, go and fix it. If the work order is issued, then like send an email and automatically schedule a calendar to review whether the work has started. Like I'll schedule an inspection for some other department. This is all human done. ERP doesn't care about any of these things.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. It cares only about the inputs that you give to the CRUD, it gives you an output.
Correct.
So you keep the ERP where it is and build all these things which are like janky things where the human is stitching together, which is the service that the human is providing to the ERP to make the work actually flow.
Correct.
Right? So you're not competing head on against the ERP, you're making the human's job like that much more livelier and easier. They can actually think about the work rather than bringing these janky things together. That's where the system of intelligence lies.
Correct. Exactly.
As it becomes better and better, if it can do all of that, it can do the CRUD.
Correct. Yeah.
If it can do the CRUD and the workflows also, then the ERP becomes a data store.
Correct.
Right. So let that ERP wither it out as the agentic workflows become better and better. Don't say I'm launching an AI ERP. That's probably how I'm thinking about it.
Right. So yeah, in essence, what you're saying is let the ERP do its job as being the system of record and doing some of the basic workflows, but those were designed with human constraints and technology constraints of say 5 years ago in mind, right? So there were certain decisions that were not possible for technology to take, which needed to be done, or certain tasks which humans needed to do, which are allowed allowed to be done by the humans, and that's essentially humans doing something that an ERP could not have done in the past. But now AI could enable that, like Ashwin was saying, right? I mean, reviewing certain records, making sure that certain parameters are correct, and then saying, yeah, this PO is allowed. This is just retrieving information from maybe 4 or 5 different sources, going through a checklist and making sure that this checklist matches. And if it's under a certain threshold, say yes, approve the PO. This is being done by a human right now. This can be easily done by an AI agent.
Yeah.
So I think, so where do you build in autonomous agents and where you build agents which support humans with a UX is something that we need to think carefully and build it on top of or underlying the ERP layer, which is the system of engagement above or system of intelligence.
Yeah. What do you, like from an agentic perspective, like if the system of intelligence is mostly agent and we know what system of records are, and we know that chat in the middle is perhaps cannot be the best UX pattern, how else would we interact with both of these? Like what do you think from a UX perspective? How do you think we can evolve, or what?
So to me, it's like ephemeral UI that comes up for me to do a certain job. The UI can be a web page. The UI could be a notification. The UI could be a voice note that comes to me saying, I've done this job, like what do you work? I'm ready with all of these things. Like, can I go ahead? You just say, yes, go ahead. So it could be any of those, whichever is relevant for that context, the lowest friction through which a human can consume the information and make a decision or give an input. If the human has to operate on it, a web page is interesting. The human has to just decide whether yes or no. Even a voice command is interesting, right? So, and all of this can be ephemeral. Comes and goes.
Yeah, I think the point is saying that not everything needs a chat style interface. You will have to think beyond chat style interfaces and that will come only when, like you said, you think of agents and the system of intelligence as a complete thing in itself, as a separate thing in itself, rather than as a bolt-on to a system of record. Right. So if you bolt on a system of record, you are constrained by the UI and the UX paradigms you know before. Right? Saying, oh, I know how to build a chat interface, so I'll build only a chat interface for me to connect.
And with that, whatever information you pull from the ERP, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's not right. If you're truly allowing the agent to do all its work, why do you even actually need to intervene? Absolutely. Right. And if you do need to intervene, what is the best way to intervene? Right. I don't think chat is the best way to intervene. Like you're saying, in some cases it could just be some piece of feedback. It need not be an intervention. Right. It could be, like you said, ephemeral. It could be a notification. It could be anything. We haven't, with the new release of these new reasoning models, APIs remain the same, but we really haven't figured out how do you guide the process using these new kinds of models? What has that had impact on the API design? So therefore, if the API design is changing or will change, how will that impact the consumption of the APIs? That's something that I don't think we've spent enough time thinking through.
So an agent which is trying to make a decision is sort of trying to mimic an expert human being who's taking a decision or a judgment call based with partial information asymmetry, and not knowing what the future will hold, but using his experience to make a judgment call. And that's what we're trying to mimic using an agent, AI agent. Now, if your say security levels and thresholds are low, you can make it autonomous. Otherwise, you need to provide the output of the agent, AI agent's decision, to an expert to say approve the decision. Now, the UI,
that's a familiar UI in some cases.
That could just be a yes or no. But there, if the human needs additional information to say yes or no, then you can have a chat to say, give me this information, retrieve that information. And that's where I think the ephemeral UI that you mentioned makes sense.
You can layer. I mean,
you can keep layering it off now, depending on. So again, very similar to what we used to do in SaaS. Look at who's using it, what the use case is, and try to build a UI. And like Bharat said, there's a lot of thinking and research need to be done
Right.
to do this.
We can speak all day long, but I think like you don't have the patience for more than 30 minutes of a podcast. I hope that you guys found this useful. We'll meet you at another time with the fourth episode of the Useful AI podcast. Thank you so much.